Welcome back to Burning the Red Shirt. I'm your host, Zach Tao, and again, Chris K and Andrew Katz are with me. You guys doing all right?
Doing good.
I'm doing good,
Yeah,
man.
no
I'm
complaints.
rocking my traditional Hawaii get up.
I love it.
I've actually seen that like other people have posted the same home field shirt, unsurprisingly, because it's really sweet. But their versions look so much sharper, and I don't know if mine's just been worn to shreds and like it's faded and stuff, or if maybe I got it pretty early in the game. Like I was an early stage investor, and so maybe they up like their quality since then. But you should talk about your shirt, Chris.
Yes, please do.
Hard pass.
Who is that? Who is that on your
Vanderbilt
shirt?
Yeah, it's a Vanderbilt shirt. So that's all I got to say about that.
All right.
I will say I have a theory that I love home field, obviously. I have like literally 30 shirts. But not every shirt fits the same. I'm a large, maybe an XL. And I find myself in this weird. My wife likes me in a large. I don't necessarily feel fully comfortable in a lot of in some of my larges. It's weird. They don't fit the same. They don't fit the same. My Wisconsin large does not fit my Vandy large, which does not fit the same as my USC large. That's all I'm saying.
That's tough for me. I want to jump in. I'm in between XL and 2X.
I will say the way I think about it is large is more of like I'm wearing like a jeans or something a little bit more tighter around the waist, and then if I have like maybe khaki shorts a little bit more loose, so I go XL with them. Or like I'm going to the beach, I wear an XL. So both of them fit well. It's just like I have to determine what my gear is for that day. So both of them are great. It's just you have to kind of like pick and choose where you're at.
All right. Well, now that we've done our home field little promo there.
Yeah. Well, we are required by law to talk about them for 60 seconds. So there we go.
I think we did a good job there. All right, let's jump into it. Had a few topics that we kind of spitballed throughout the week and got a couple responses, couple conversations on Twitter about topics. I believe, Andrew, when you put this out there, I'm assuming you're meaning Corey Cavender's question. I don't have that on me. Where is it?
Yeah, it's Corey. He qualified his question that he's a new subscriber, and I would push back if we had enough of a subscribership where it actually mattered. But beggars can't be choosers at this point in the game. Once we get big enough where we can just act really pompous, then we'll do it.
Okay. Well, I got his question. I found it.
Okay.
So obviously he says new follower here. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's a lie.
So he says per policy, his question must be answered. Are you guys finding you have a preferred draft slot based on where guys are falling in drafts? I tend to like my teams better the later I pick in the first round. And I actually responded to this one. And I said, I kind of agree with him. I prefer to pick later in the first round because I didn't feel that there was a guy that won. I don't feel 100% confident about who I would pick. It might change based on the day. So I feel like if later in the draft, I feel like, all right, those decisions are made for me. I know who the next guys that are from 5 to 12 kind of are. How you guys feel?
Can I break news? I get all the push notifications unfiltered to my phone because I'm a psycho. Brady won the power struggle with Bruce Arians and forced Bruce Arians to quit coaching the Bucs. He's moving to a front office role. So Brady kicked him out of head coaching.
Whoa.
Yeah. Kind of cool, right?
Yeah, it's kind of neat.
Yeah. But so I'm with you generally speaking. Like I love drafting from the wheel in our in the champion series that Greg Devy Warehouse runs, right? It's 12. Chris said it was 10. It's 12. It makes perfect sense that it's 12 because we each get a draft slot once, right?
You're right.
And there's 12 of us. So I picked 12th in this one that we just finished up the other day. And generally, I love the wheel. I love just getting 2 picks in a row and being able to do cool shit. It's the best. But the first couple of rounds this year so far, I'm not really loving what I can do with the first couple picks when I'm that deep in draft. Like I feel like there's a clear tier break at like 6, 7. It's probably like 1 through 4, and then 5 through 8, and then after that, it's kind of like I feel like there's a real drop. Like the 1 through 4 and 5 through 8 are all pretty close, and then after that, I feel like it's a pretty big tier drop. If you're about grabbing early quarterbacks, then you can just grab those two guys on the wheel, no problem. But if you're not trying to play that game, I don't know. I feel like running back, I did Charbonnet and Tillman from 112 to 1, and I wasn't really thrilled about it, but at the same time, I wasn't really interested in like Bryce Young at our one of our most common talking points on the show, right? General hating of drafting of Bryce Young at value or where he's going generally in drafts. So I wasn't really interested in playing that game. So, and I didn't really want to just force myself into a player or a type of player that didn't really conform to the strategy that I generally like to go with. So I probably cost myself some overall points, but I knew what I wanted to do in the draft, so just grab those guys. But it felt like I was playing catch up relative what most of the other people were getting in the form of their first couple picks. So I feel like when you are drafting at the end of the draft this year, things will change, right? It's only March going on April, but right now, if you're doing a draft, a best ball draft, whatever, a draft across all 130, you're at the conclusion of the first couple of rounds. If you're drafting at the end, you're probably playing catch up.
I would say, for me, coming to this question, I would say I like 101, I like 104, I like 105. I think there's a clear top 5 picks, and then there's a tier break. Yeah, basically 5 to 6.
Who's
picks.
5?
So you got Jackson Smith and Jigba, you got Travion Henderson, you got Bijan, you got Jahmyr Gibbs.
Okay, so you put Gibbs in there.
Oh, of course I put Gibbs in there. I've picked Gibbs like literally 30 times already here. And then I think you got Deuce Vaughn. That's your 5. Okay.
Not Stroud?
Well, give me a second here. And then I think if you're that high, but I think here's the problem with going Stroud is you can go Gibbs. If you look at my last draft, okay, if you look at this one we just recently did, I went Gibbs at 105. Then I went Sam Hartman in the second, and then I went Will Rogers in the third. You could have subbed in maybe Ewers and Brennan Armstrong at the same spot there for Will Rogers, just for reference. Why would you go Stroud there at 5 when you can get those two guys at quarterback? But I think ultimately you go JSN at 101. You have plenty of opportunities at quarterbacks at your end of the second and then early third, obviously. But I think that the thing is with those is you have to be cool with taking quarterbacks early. If you want to be hammering like running backs, receivers early, I don't think like the top 5 picks is for you. I think you're more likely or more prone or better off with that later half. I just think in terms of picks, I think there's a clear top 5. It's the 5 I mentioned, right? And they're all running backs, receivers, mainly running backs. I'm not sold on Xavier Worthy as a top 5 pick. A.T. Perry, Rasheen Ali. We talked about these guys, right? Braylon Allen.
Lou Nichols.
Lou Nichols a great option there, but not like I think those are all guys that like are good for the second half of the first round. But I think you get into this area where like you could also in another draft potentially see like a Charbonnet. And by the way, I love Charbonnet. I love Tillman. I love what you did.
Thanks,
but you're in a spot where you're in the spot, right? You take your guys, so you do what you got to do. But I think you could also see both of those guys taken in the mid to second round.
Yep.
Or mid to late second round. You're just in this weird spot where you're forced to go for your guys. And I would prefer the first half of the first round is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know if it's always this way, but it feels like you can start to nitpick and find problems with top players really quickly outside of like the big four, big five. Like there's what you can really easily craft ways that things don't work out.
Yeah. Can we take a quick second? I put together a poll that was crazy nice because of all the C2C guys. Thank you very much, all you guys who retweeted it. Basically saying, like, do you have a 101? Like, do you believe there's a true 101 in the draft? Did you both? And this is talking best ball and redraft. This is not talking CTC or Devi or any of that. This is just strictly 1 year. Tell me who your best players are. Did you guys see the results? Because I'm curious.
I saw it when there was 80 some odd votes, and Bijan was the.
I'm looking at it right now.
So we did Trevion Henderson. I said Trevion Henderson. I said Jackson Smith and Jigba, Bijan Robinson, and then I said just straight up, I don't believe there's a true 101 in the draft. And I'm not gonna lie, the guy I believe is a 101 basically was last. So I'm very curious to hear your thoughts on the poll.
Well, I took Henderson. I think it's mainly because I don't like taking receivers that 101 because I think it kind of goes back to the conversation, Andrew, I think believe in the last pod we did that generally you can find receivers. There's more of them to find, and they kind of emerge more so than running backs do. When the stud running backs are there, you kind of grab them. That's why I lean Henderson.
Yeah, I would leave. I mean, that's what I've been doing for most of the drafts where I've been picking early. If Henderson's there, I take him. I took JSN one time just to mess around where I did have the 101 and didn't really love the way my draft shaked out. So I voted. I just wanted to be contrarian, so took the last one. I think when I actually voted, but I would Trevion's my dude.
Yeah. Well, Bijan got basically 40% of votes, and we're at 145. So you're talking about 58 votes out of 145.
That's your C2C boys, though. That's all.
I mean, but can you blame them? I mean, me personally, I would have gone. If I'm ranking them, I go Jackson Smith and Jigba. I go Bijan. I probably go Gibbs, Deuce Vaughn, and then I probably go Trevion. Personally,
that's what makes it fun.
Yeah, but that isn't that kind of the whole point that there's not a clear one.
Yeah,
to me, it's clear. I would go.
You say that, but
personally, I would have gone. I'd go JSN, and then I'd go quarterback in a running back or a receiver.
But I guarantee you, if you ask 5 different people to rank those 5, you're going to get a different 5 order, right? Like that's kind of the whole thing. Like so. I wouldn't take Smith and Jigba first. Now, if I'm sitting there second or third, maybe I'm taking him. But like first, I'm not. I don't think I'm taking wide receiver. Like just as a general rule for me.
Yeah, I will say one of my favorite follows, someone that's always interacting with everything. He's super degenerate, underrated. ATL Dan asked or said, "Has anyone ever won a CFF league with a receiver as their best player?" And I am way too lazy to look that up, so I don't know. But I'm posing that question to you guys. My initial answer is no. I like the leagues that I've done well in, at least not maybe win, but done well in. It leans. I feel like quarterback, running back.
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
I'll say I know I won a league with Brandon Cooks as my. See, I don't know if he was my best player though, because I had really good quarterbacks too. But Brandon Cooks was a machine at Oregon State. Yeah. I don't know if I mean my best player.
I feel like we could have prepped for this, and I apologize, but like, when was the last time a receiver was top 5 in fantasy points?
Well, that would.
I mean, Brandon Cooks was like insane.
That's such a CFB dynasty question. He loves all that stuff.
Oh yeah, he would definitely pull all that. He would run all of that, and he would have an answer. But
I mean, did the team with Jarrett Stearns not win their league last year?
Guilty as charged.
You didn't win your league?
Yeah, Rebel Nut took me down in the finals.
Oh no! But that was like a 40-team league with like 30 starting roster spots, right? Like
No, it was who started it? Who started? Was it Heisey startup 14 team, full PPR? Nothing too interesting outside of that. But a few of us just had monster teams, and like we both put up high scores in the finals. Jareth did nothing in the finals. I don't know if you remember. That was the week they played Marshall, and I think he only had like 5 for 25 or something. So
that hurts.
yeah.
Well, so I'll go back to ATL Dan, my dog Dan.
Dude, he's the man. I follow him because of you, and we're out here talking literature today and shit.
Super underrated. Honestly, I feel bad. I need to like meet him at a bar somewhere, so maybe we do that. And this is an invitation. He goes, I voted Bijan because they play Kansas and Baylor in the playoffs. I mean, if you're talking about next level thinking in terms of if we're all thinking these top 5 guys, at least in my eyes, like let's say maybe these top 5 guys are on the same boat. Like, why wouldn't you take the guy that's going to face Kansas and Baylor in the playoffs? That's a great move.
I read, actually, I don't remember who it was. They posted something similar. They said, to succeed in CFF, your regular season, you just got to.
Your boy Mitch posted this.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so you know where I'm going with it. So like you basically survive in the regular season, get to the playoffs, and have a roster set up for those last 2 to 3 weeks to dominate. But that's a very
that's hard, right?
Yeah, like for 1 or 2 guys, I guess you could take that gamble on. But if you build your whole roster that way, what happens if your first 6 weeks you're 1-5, right? Like
I think it's smart to try and do that optimization intra-season, but from the outset, maybe it's a tiebreaker if you have nothing else to go on. But like I think I've mentioned before, the commissioner of my home league will not draft anyone with a bye week in the championship, but he never gets there anyway. So it doesn't really matter.
Right. His thinking's solid. It's just the rest of his decisions aren't great.
Yeah. But I don't know. I added Ellis Merriweather let me try and say his name again. Ellis Merriweather in every place I could last year in the middle of the year when I saw this dude getting 20-30 carries at UMass, and that I saw that playoff schedule of like a mix of like MAC and FCS teams. I was like, this is sweet. Let's do this. And it worked really well. I benched him against Rebel, so that wasn't helpful either. My team was so stacked that I just didn't I was like, there's no way I can play this UMass dude, even though he's been money for me the last 5 weeks. Like I'm not gonna. I'm just gonna do something else instead, and obviously it didn't work. But I feel like that's the strategy that I like and gravitate toward a little more. Trying to like once you start to feel comfortable about your securing the playoff positioning. Then I start to think, as soon as I start to feel confident about making playoffs, then I'm thinking about playoff stuff, but not during draft. I think it's just a little too. There's too many variables in the room.
So,
to really do
I think we may have talked about this before. So when you draft, how concerned with bye weeks are you? Like, are you one of those people that's like, oh no, I can't take him because I already have 3 guys on a week 8 bye?
Yeah, I would say I'm concerned enough not to go everybody week 6 or whatever, right? But I'm not like CFF's crazy. You can find guys. You can tell. I can like, especially with like a defense, right? Like I can find a week 6 defense that can be serviceable. But is it going to determine what I pick? No. But am I going to keep it back of mind? Is it a tiebreaker? 100%. But I can't. Best ball, it makes a lot more sense to be really conscious of it because there's so many variables. You get guys that hurt. Like we literally pick guys today, March 30th, that have to be available in weeks 1, 2, 3. So like you'd be crazy not to spread it out because a guy could get suspended, a guy could get hurt. A guy could have a bye, so you'd be crazy not to. But like if I'm drafted in August for a redraft, probably not impacting too much.
Yeah, I guess best ball you definitely would need to. You don't want you basically punting a week if you have them all on the same bye.
Yeah, you can, right? But like
Right.
in March, that changes way more than drafting even a best ball in August because there's so many things that can happen. Think about both of you guys as college kids. What were you guys doing as college kids? Anything can happen.
Yeah.
So I think that like the more time you get closer to the season, there's the less prop or the higher probability of people not being idiots, getting suspended and stuff like that. So yeah, long story short.
Fair enough. Andrew, do you have a thought on that or no?
I don't really think about it too much, especially on in-season managed teams. In best ball, I messed around a little bit last year with trying to think, well, actually, do I not need to worry too much about bye weeks on positions like tight end and defense where we have those? Like, can I actually punt a week just because I like this player or this defense enough where I think they're going to contribute more value than the other options that I'm less confident in? I don't know what, like, it's only 1 week. Like, what's the big deal? Like, if you like that player, that defense so much more, maybe it's the right decision. But I don't know.
Interesting quick thought here, Andrew. We're doing this Greg
Yeah.
tight end premium draft, and maybe let's just say hypothetically it's not a tight end premium draft. Like, does it make sense not to just? I mean, I'm drafting guys that are like decent, but like think about if you look at like a tight end, like how often they go like 4 for 24, right?
Yeah.
And if it's a half point, let's say it's just a PPR, it's 6 points, right? You start 2 tight ends in these leagues, like why not just pick 4 or 5 just directly at the end?
I thought about it. I did it last year in some leagues, and it worked out absolutely horribly most of the time.
Did you, real quick, do you think that it did not work out well because of the guys you picked? Or do you think it worked out horribly because any of those guys at the end were bad?
It's a good question. And I think it is worth going back and try to examine.
Maybe I try it on one and then completely forget about it and never report on it and never.
I mean, I generally am not the kind of person that's going to have a very carefully managed and curated portfolio of like not ensuring that I'm not overweight on players and stuff. Like if I got like guys, I'll just keep drafting them. And I'll take it personally when people try and move up their price and get ahead of me, and then I'll just keep inflating it and stuff like that. But like I grabbed Casey Kelly, Riley Smith, like these guys sucked last year. I thought they were going to be sweet and they were going to be late round values. Yeah. The BC guy didn't pan out. I forget his name, like the guy who transferred in. And,
Trey Berry.
Yeah. He had a couple good weeks, but like he
was kind of banged up. It was kind of under.
Jerko got hurt. Like
overrated.
It's kind of conspired against him.
But right? Like, what are you missing? 6.5 points. Like if you just pick 5 at the end, like is it possible if you do well with the bye weeks, like maybe you get away with it? Like I don't know. I feel like in this tight end premium league, it's just it's just wild. I mean, we're
it's
picking
the best,
dudes
dude.
I've never heard of in like the 6th round.
Right. Yeah, like I was super happy with the way like we've done 2 of these now. The first one I was like, I basically did what I wanted. We have to, it's a tight end premium in the sense we have to start 2 tight ends and it's PPR, but the tight ends get double PPR. So in our first draft, I was like, I mapped out my strategy. I was like, all right, I want to grab like 3 tight ends in rounds like 8, in between like rounds 8 and 12. And I had a collection of like 5 I wanted to draft. And I got like my top 3. I was like, this is awesome. I'm going to do the same thing against next draft. And they won't they went rounds like 6, 7, and 7. I was like, damn it. I guess, I guess people learned and got smarter like Raptors and Jurassic.
We got this league. We got Jaheim Bell in the 7th. We got Brant Keith in the 8th. Payne Durham in the 7th. I took him. Sam Laporta in the 7th. Like it gets Ryan Jones in the 7th. I wasn't even sure who he was until you took him last draft.
Is that league like when a tight end goes, like the floodgates open and everybody starts?
It is a guarantee that the guy that takes Brock Bowers in the first round also takes Michael Mayer in the second round. Twice in a row. It was the first time it was Kyle Franchise, my dog. and then CFF guys, Josh.
I mean, that's
So-
not terrible in that
It's
in that
both.
format.
I mean, but I will say I don't know what Kyle did the first time around, but I was looking at it earlier. Josh went Brock and then Mayer first 2 rounds, and I'd like pulled it up and I was like, I swear to God, if he takes another tight end anytime the first 15 rounds, he's an idiot. Sure enough,
He's
he
an
waited.
idiot.
No,
Oh,
Josh
no.
is a great guy. He's smart, man. He waited. He waited till week 19. He took a solid Josh Weil, and then he took Elijah Arroyo. So, I mean, genius, right? Like, if you're going to take a tight end that high in this premium league, you just have to bank on them being healthy and great.
You're basically
So-
bookending your draft
Yeah.
with tight ends.
Yeah, I mean, why would you continue to take guys if that's like if you believed in them so much you took those
Yeah.
too early? So
I'm thinking I should make the change in Dynasty. I've already got it kind of skewed. Let's just do double PPR and let's just roll with it.
yeah, as long as we keep it with 4 point for passing touchdowns, we're good.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll move on. Andrew, I know you want to talk about a question we got. I didn't know if did he post it?
I linked
you?
you to it. Yeah. So
No, I don't.
originally, I guess Sal wanted to keep it low key, and he DM'd one of your accounts.
He did, and I didn't want to put that out there if it was personally to me.
Right. I respect that. I'm super secretive with all my stuff too. But then he ended up. I guess you weren't getting back to him quickly enough, and he didn't feel confident that you actually would. So he tweeted into like the chain where I posted asking for topics, asking for late round C2C players. Of course, none of us play. You play actually. Are you actually playing? Yeah.
It hasn't done anything yet. Like it's just sitting there. I'm not really sure what. You have to see the rules to this.
It hasn't done anything yet.
I don't
No.
understand.
So I created my CFF team in Fantrax, and they're still waiting for everybody to come over and create their team over there. But I had there's these rules on naming your team, and I knew at that point. I said, okay, no. This
is going to end
me.
not well.
Like it has to be a real city with an actual mascot name. I'm thinking like what do you mean it's got to be a real city? Like it could be anywhere. He's like, yeah, it could be the moon if it wants. So I'm like, okay, no. And then he's talking about like realignment and stuff after each season. I said, this is too much.
The only thing I'm interested in with C2C at this point in my life is I want the origin story. Like my speculation is that I think Kyle created it, like the actual thing. Like there's no way this has just been something that's been out here and like organically came together. Some sicko actually created this thing, right? It's not like CFF where it's like, oh, let's just play college fantasy football. There's an NFL version. We just do it here too.
Yeah.
Like that's pretty organically like going to happen, right? Not in like any sort of, obviously we're still like kind of like sheltering ourselves from the masses. Don't want people to know that we're playing, but this is different. Like C2C, like there was no organic and natural progression of that. Like some lunatic actually crafted this as a game and wrote all the bylines akin to like I think every version from what I've heard is more or less in line with what you're talking about too. Like one of my CFF buddies, Andy McPhail. I don't know if you guys follow him. He lives in England, and I got him to join Mike's Discord, and he'll pop in every now and then and say some British stuff, which is great. But he joined a C2C league, and he was just like, dude, the rules in this league, like I think that's like the first rite of passage that everyone has to come to grips with. Like no one actually knows what they're signing up for. But anyway.
That's exactly.
But you're the closest to it in the sense that you actually gotten to the point where you familiarized yourself with the rules. Chris and I don't mess around with this at all. But we could still offer something to Sal, or at least I can. I've given it way too much considerable thought. And I think I have 3 names that I want to talk to. So if I say Quick Lane Bowl, does that mean anything to you? Who played in the Quick Lane Bowl this year on December 27th at 11 a.m.? That's 2 hints.
A MAC school and a Big Ten school?
MAC, yeah.
Was that Nevada? Was that Nevada?
Yeah. Western Michigan and Nevada.
Oh boy,
That was such a fun,
Auburn.
profitable slate for me.
Yeah, I was sweating that one. Damn it! Thanks a lot for
that. It was good, but do you remember you watched the game? Obviously, like what else were you doing?
Clearly, unfortunately,
do you remember anything about Western Michigan's running backs that day?
That was the random. It was not Sean Tyler. It wasn't Ladarius. It wasn't Jackson Kincaid. It was like the fourth guy.
Dude, you are. I don't give you enough credit. I assume I'm the only person who has.
It was like it was like something Ajingba or something like that, or Obachinga or something.
You're raising my opinion of you presently. But yeah, so Ladarius just randomly didn't play, and we never got anywhere. Out of nowhere. Yeah. Like he was one of the classical bowl game. You can't even call it a late scratch because he wasn't scratch. He just didn't play.
Did he even go pro or did he just chill? Because he was like, I'm taking an early Christmas.
He is practicing, like doing spring practice. So he's still with the team. But Jesus. Right. So Sean Tyler did his thing, but we should have seen this coming. Like Jackson Kincaid got all the run because he was the Nevada transfer. So they were just like, go mess up your former squad, dude. Go get it. And he went for like 150 and 3 or something. But yeah, the fourth guy who was the third guy that day is the guy that I want to talk about. I can't even say his name. Zahir Abdus Salam. Dude, so this guy's from my backyard, like 2 miles from me. And he's actually got, I don't understand. He's listed as being from 2 places, from Newark and Union City, which are like they're 2 towns directly adjacent to where I live in Jersey City.
He was a pretty big prospect for them, right? Like I remember them talking about like him being like a 3-star.
I think so. I haven't looked up the stars or anything like that, dude. I don't know if you remember anything about this guy. He's listed at 5'9", 200, just like the James Madison guy that Josh likes. That if that dude's 100, 200, I'm 110. Like this dude was running like he was 250, like Derrick Henry type deal. He only got 4 carries for 31 yards that day, but I immediately took notes down. I'm like, this dude at some point is going to ascend to be the Western Michigan running back, which is, I mean, Tim Lester catches shit for basically not doing enough with that program. Like 7 wins with Ellaby, with Sky Moore, with I
would say Ellaby. You're not wrong, but I would say Ellaby going pro is, for lack of better words, dumb. But whatever. But I think that's a great call, right? Like it's interesting. You kind of want a guy to not be great in a C2C, I feel like, but not be bad. So you're like this. Okay, so he's got a good rating, a good star rating, but he doesn't have like an immediate like success story. So he doesn't think he can go pro after 3 years. You want him to like not be so loving to himself that he thinks he has to be there for 4 years at Western Michigan.
Yeah.
So I think it's a great option. I think that's a great pick.
Yeah, those dudes draft like 50 guys on the college side too. Like, and you look at some of the drafts and you see like they're getting super mega producers like pretty late. But this is even later than that, obviously. But I feel like you stash this guy when Tyler's gone, when Ladarius is gone, he's going to be the RB1 there. And based on the 4 carries we saw in that bowl game against the depleted Nevada squad, I think he's sweet. So
yeah, I mean, I think in terms of Mac, right, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, especially if you're doing like a best ball. If there's some sort of like C2C best ball format, maybe like that's a no-brainer. I took Sean Tyler in this most recent best ball because like, okay, well, he's sharing some time with Jefferson and maybe Jackson Kincaid and other guys.
He's gone. But, like, Kincaid's gone now.
Well, thank God, praise. But like he's gonna go off like 3 or you know how it is in Mac. Like you go 3 or 4 games where a guy goes like 15 carries, 200 yards, 3 touchdowns. Like maybe not out of nowhere, but like that's kind of crazy. But like that's perfect for best ball. So if you have like that type of format, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I like him as a stash for like 2023. I mean, Tyler, everyone has infinite years at this point, so who knows when Tyler's going to be gone, when Jefferson's going to be gone. But I think that this dude's going to be the RB1 on Western Michigan, assuming they continue to be like an upper middle team and have a system that's heavy reliant on running backs, right? I think there's going to be value there. The other 2 players.
I wanted to jump in. Chris, you said he was a pretty high recruit for them.
Was it a lie?
No, I mean, he was 24/7 has him as a 3-star.
There we
So-
go.
Check me out. Check me out. I know my Michigan schools, especially if they're directionals.
Nice.
Cool. The other two players, so that I think from a C2C perspective, especially, like that it makes a lot of sense to grab Dylan Goffney and Jordan Curley right now. They are probably, as their value is as low as it will ever be. They've got a lot of hoops to jump through in the way of grabbing targets in 2022 at SMU with Corrales there, with Moore there, with Rice there. But like when 2021 ended, these guys were at the top of, were squarely on my radar of players I absolutely needed on my 2022 CFF teams. I have them on some, if not all, of my dynasty squads as holdovers from last year, thinking, okay, natural ascension, even if Dykes leaves, SMU will make a sweet hire because that's all they do is just make really cool hires and keep the offense rolling there. And these guys will send to WR2, WR3. Goffney spelled Danny Gray perfectly, had a double-digit catch game last year. Jordan Curley, I think it's Jordan. Yeah, Jordan Curley was subbing in for my boy Reggie Roberson in important spots in the season. Basically, I think because A, they saw this dude could ball, and B, Reggie was a shell of himself. Like it was so hopeful of me to think that he would just come back from shredding his knee to pieces and just be the dude that we saw out there in 2020, and it just didn't happen. When they needed someone to go up and get it for like a 30-yard go route and just clash and come down with the ball, they put Curley in to do that, do what Roberson used to be able to do. So I think Curley was going to be natural ascension into the Roberson role, and then they went out there and brought in Joshua Moore and Bo Corrales. And now, I mean, I still think that they're like, if you put a gun to my head and said who would be more productive this year, the tandem of Corrales and Moore or Goffney and Curley, I would probably say Moore and Corrales, just because I think that coaches do dumb things and they brought in their transfers that they want to play. But I think that there's lots of outs for those guys who I feel like are the better receivers, are more talented, and should at some point, hopefully in 22, maybe they have to wait till 2023, ball out.
Lots of thoughts here. I think that this is a great team to like think about for C2C. So, I mean, like, right, Rashee Rice is gone after this year. Moore is gone. Corrales is gone, right? Like, without a doubt. So, like, absolute worst case scenario, you take a Goffney, you take a Curley, which is a question I have in a second here. Worst case, you're just waiting a year. And an offense that is very much like pass friendly, like wants to put it up and throw it around and have fun and do things fast. So all great things. So like if you're in a C2C, I imagine lots of value in, hey, worst case scenario, I'm getting a guy that's going to produce on my college side of things. And then, you know, like you think like Danny Gray, right? Like is a pretty, like in my opinion, is like he's not like groundbreaking NFL prospect, but he's interesting, right? My question is, I hear Curley and I think of is that the Jets receiver Curley?
Dude, I
How old is Curley?
TCU?
Because he feels like I just think he's like a 12th year senior.
Yeah, I screw it up all the time, like in my head, and then putting pen to paper. And like on the rare occasion, I actually tweet about Curley. I'm pretty sure I've tweeted about Jeremy Curley before thinking I was tweeting about the SMU dude.
I think Goffney is a no-brainer, right? I think like in terms of SMU receiver production, like you look at Danny Gray, you look at some of these other guys, you look at what's the tight end that went there, Calcaterra, right? Like there's lots of receiving threats that can be producing. So Goffney, no brainer. He had some good games. Curley, I think so too. I guess I always just perceived him as like an old guy, so I never
He transferred from Arizona State, so he's been around
That's-
a little bit.
I think that's why I never really considered him as like a guy I have to pick up.
Yeah.
I like him though. I mean, I think that's always going to be an offense. If you're SMU, right? Like if you're Army, if you're Navy, you're not going to just like go to like this basic ass offense. Like you just can't, right? Like you just to
It's in
be
your
cool
blood.
and to get guy. Yeah, it's in your blood. It's not like you're not recruiting being like, you know what, we're going to run the I formation. We're going to run it 50-50. We're going to have a great time. Like that's not getting guys there, right? So I think SMU is a great school to consider for C2C.
That's actually a good topic. We can do it another day, but like schools that probably will never be a playoff team, will never be, maybe not even a New Year's Six team, maybe on their rare year they are one, but their offense is fun and it puts up points. Why change it? Like, do you think teams do that kind of thing just to be more appealing to players, to stay relevant in terms of like we're not going to be a boring offense to where we're just, like you said, running it 50 times a game? And
Yeah. I think you have to think about what your end goal is, right? Like for a lot of years, people were saying Kansas needs to just run the triple option. And I mean, I don't think they were wrong, right? It's the Big 12, but like, what is your goal? What's your end goal? Is if you're Kansas, if you could have 5 years of winning 8 games, or at best winning
11
and going to the Orange Bowl and losing, but the other 4 years you win a
2 to 3
total of
games.
12 games or something,
Yeah.
right? Like there's definitely that give and take. I know like Oregon State was for some reason paired in with it, which feels awful because I feel like
it's
you
like,
think about the two, they have to have done better, but yeah.
would you trade, like, let's say, Chris, we'll use you, Michigan. If I said they're going to win a national championship this year, but they're going to win a total of 10 games the next 3 seasons, do you take it?
I would take the championship, yeah. I think
I think people would.
it depends on how much the person's been hurt, you know, when that person, right? But yeah, I think that's definitely a good debate, right? Like the whole, it's all expectation.
You
Right?
brought up the offenses where like I'll just use a team that's here, like Memphis. They were so bad for so long, and they decided to finally, when Fuente got here, to kind of spread it out. Just hold on, hear me out.
You didn't have to say that curse word.
Anyway, spread it out. Just score a lot of points. We might give up a lot of points, but we're going to be in all these games because we can score. Is that not all that you can ask for from a team like that? Like, we're going to be in every game,
Yeah.
you know? But
Yeah, I think there's the entertainment value that goes with that too, right? Like, I don't know. I think it's an interesting, fun debate that differs program to program. It also goes fan to fan, right? Like I think there are fans that love winning 8 to 9 games, and I think there are fans that would want the playoff appearance and getting smacked and have no issue with it. And I think it also depends on how much that person's been hurt in their life.
yeah.
So
It's
there's a lot
funny.
of variables.
Here's the other end of the spectrum. Like, my wife and my in-laws, they're all Alabama fans, from Alabama, huge Alabama fans. And they've been winning so much that when they lose, you would think that they had, like, the season's a failure. It's like a complete just failure. But that's the expectation that they have, that a playoff national championship is the expectation, not, oh, we're going to win 10 games, go to a bowl game.
Have you ever been to an Alabama game at Bryant Denny?
I have not.
So when we went there for my bachelor party, it was when Dak was at Mississippi State, and Dak and Mississippi State were number 1, and game day was there. It was this, like, perfect, most amazing thing ever. And Alabama just, like, they have Derrick Henry that year, and the game was really never in doubt. But Alabama was number 5 at the time. They knock off number 1 in their home stadium, and all the fans were just like, "Yep, good job." And like nothing even close to representative of like storming the field or anything like that. Like everybody
shakes hands and goes home.
Yeah, it was cool to see.
Yeah. All right, real quick. I don't know if we talked about him. I know we may have in our chat. Like, Ulysses Bentley when he went to Ole Miss. Did we talk about that on the pod, or did we just talk about it in the chat?
I
don't
think
think
we
we
talked
have.
about it.
Okay,
I don't think we have. I don't think we have.
Really?
I don't know that we have it on the pod. I
I-
thought maybe it was in
I
our
don't think we
chat.
have on the pod.
I have such an introspective takeaway. I thought we talked about it that like Bentley and you're right. I don't think we have Bentley and Evans. As much as I hate to admit it, like there is more similarity between them than there is difference in a lot of ways. I think to date, right? They've flashed. Neither of them has been able to hold up for anything representative of a full workload across the entire season. We have kind of seen them in that or have the chance to take a workhorse type role. And what happened next for Bentley multiple times, for Evans once, was it just did not work out due to injury. We can read into that however we want, right? With Evans, there's potentially more variables in the equation. With Bentley, pretty much like he was injured, and each of the last, I think he was hurt in 2020, definitely 2021. And I think that it's fair to kind of make an assumption that it was due to the workload that they tried to give him. Why it's introspective for me is I have never been on Bentley. I've never been really interested in drafting him, but I love Evans. But when I take a step back and think about it, like these guys are more similar than I would like to admit. And I probably shouldn't be as harsh on Bentley as I am.
I think you give yourself not as much credit as you deserve on Evans. I think Evans gets a bad rap for like the whole pre-college thing. Yeah. And he was kind of banged up or what we don't even know probably. Then he was playing, and then TCU's a bunch of idiots, and they just play him a little bit and then a lot. And like when he played, he was awesome. I mean, he was just straight awesome, right? Ulysses S. Bentley, like, did I say S? Like, I mean, like, just you can't not, right? I don't know. Like, I just feel like he feels like a guy that's just straight offense based. It's straight pace. It's level of competition. And I'm not saying that Big 12 that is that much better or whatever, but like it just feels like he has had injuries as well, but his performance have been super high and low, and he's gotten a ton of touches all the time, like when he's played. I would love Evans 100%. So like going into now having Evans and Bentley at Ole Miss, which loves, at least this past year, splitting carries amongst a bunch of guys for some reason. Lane Kiffin, what are you doing? You're clever in every facet of life except for football sometimes. Like I don't feel confident with Bentley. Like I just don't. Like I don't feel. What is he going to get? 12 touches? What am I getting out of that?
Yeah,
like he's very touchdown dependent at that point. He's very much 12 of those 12 touches. You better get 3 catches. Like that's where I feel like, and I'm just never gonna draft him at that point.
No, he's off the table in most leagues at this point. I never really so. I was drafting a lot of Evans in our first few drafts, and I don't think the argument for Evans it's never been, and it never needs to be one that he needs to be this dude who sees 25, 30 carries to return value. Like he was getting 15 carries and like 5 targets last year and was just crushing it when healthy. And that could still happen, like sharing the load with Bentley, right? Mm-hmm. I was hoping that in our latest draft in Greg's Sicko League that the Evans news would be perceived a little more negatively, and I would be able to get him at like round 4 or 5. But someone reached up and grabbed him in 3, which I mean, good on them. But we talked there was a lot of talk on Twitter. It seemed about Bentley hurting Evans' stock now, and maybe a little ceiling is taken away, right? But I think more or less things remain static in terms of what you can realistically dream on for Evans.
Yeah, I would say that's true if we believed he was going to be a high touch guy.
Yeah.
Pre-Bentley, and I just don't think that's the case. We have not seen any evidence of that. We had Snoop Connor. We had all these other guys, right? Like
Mhm.
getting a bunch of touches, Henry Parrish and
Ely.
Ely, right? Like, I mean, they were good players for sure. Not necessarily Snoop Connor, but like they were all spreading around. Like, so why am I thinking that like Evans' value is dependent on touches? It's not. It's like you said, right? Like, give him the 15 to 18 touches. The Ole Miss is going to score like crazy. As long as he gets those, he's fine.
Do you think Altmaier versus Dart is decided?
I think that's decided. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I don't think there's. I think that's a no-brainer. Like, you would have to be crazy to think that. Altmaier had an interesting showing in the the bowl game last year. I just don't think when you have Dart, it'd be hard to. And I'm not even the biggest Dart guy. I just think that you'd be crazy to think that Dart's not going to win that one.
Yeah, I
Kind
mean,
of goes back to the like why transfer there if you really don't have the inside track to get
but
it.
this is the portal king, right? He's just gonna sell snake oil. But I mean, I was also, he snake oiled me into believing that he might start JRP over Corral his first year there, and obviously that wasn't happening. So just in the vein of like, okay, is this a real competition kind of deal? But Altmaier and Dart are both top 100 recruits from the same class. Dart's a little higher up, right? I think he's like top 50-ish. I don't really follow that stuff, but I rely on all the lunatics that I follow to bring the information to me. But Altmaier made one throw in that bowl game that was like, all right, this is why this dude is like a legit recruit. Like, but like, I try very actively to give players a clean slate relative to when they get thrown into bowl games, because I've been burned, or just in games in general, like backups coming in there, not because I've been burned on it too many times where I've just formed assumptions based on a backup coming into a game, and it turns out like, dude, he's been playing with backups all year. Like, how is he gonna be expected to perform up to the quality of starter in that setting? But I don't know. I would like to think that it's not decided. I'd like to see the people that are taking Dart in the 4th round get burned, but it probably is.
Yeah, I think. I mean, I get it, right? It's kind of like we talked about it earlier, right? And I'm pretty anti. I think it's Sam Heward at Washington. I'm not even going to respect the fact that I know or maybe not know his first name, but it's the same thing, right? Like, of course he's going to be awful. Like, he's a true freshman, and he was playing with a bunch of backups in practice. Like, of course he's going to be bad when he starts for the first time, and that's 100% acceptable. That's 100% reasonable. Altmaier, like, it's almost. I was reading. This is going to be really off kilter, so I apologize.
It's fine.
I was reading these tweets by this Detroit Pistons guy. And he was talking about rookies in the NBA, and he was like, I care about the positives a guy does, the amount of them he does, rather than the negatives he does. And because over time experience will help him lower the negatives. And I think he said it was 20 positives to 15 negatives. Over time, he can lower those 15 negatives, right? But he can always increase those 20 positives. Like, think about even if he stays at 20 positives, but he lowers his negatives, that's a great efficiency rate, right? But like, if you're really efficient and you do 6 positive good things and 1 negative thing, you have a great efficiency rate, but you're not doing a whole lot positive. And I think that's a lot of like what Dart did, was like he did a lot of great stuff there at USC. He got hurt. He moved on. But I just think like when you're young, if you can flash a ton of positives, I feel like I'm way more all in than a guy that might, maybe not make as many mistakes, maybe doesn't do a ton of positives, but just doesn't do a whole lot of negatives. Like, who wants Cade McNamara, right? Like, I imagine that guy is like a freshman, sophomore that would have just been a total game manager, would have won some games, but like, I don't want that in fantasy. Like, I don't want to touch that, because what's he improving?
Yeah, that's fair. All right, so we've already almost at an hour. There's one topic Andrew brought up. I want him to kind of explain, because I'm not really sure exactly where he's going with it. You wanted to talk about a world where a large-scale best ball tournament exists.
We need like 2 hours for this because
I need you to just kind of give me a rundown on what you're talking about. The large scale in terms of.
do you not like I know you live in like the sticks out in Mississippi.
Yeah.
Right? Like, do you have access to playing Underdog or playing best ball, football, NFL on DraftKings?
Like internet.
I probably do, but I just haven't.
True. Dude, NFL best ball is just the best way to kill time, burn money in the offseason. Like the slow drafts with like 4-hour clocks or whatever, 8-hour clocks. And
Probably nothing better than going to the beach, just chugging a bunch of beer and just drafting, like slow drafting NFL teams.
Dude, it's
I
great.
did it and held it in Hilton Head this past summer. Amazing. It was awesome. So I'm with you.
Yeah. And it's like in the NFL game, right? There's no way I'm going to attain anything close to an edge. So I'm just lighting money on fire in those tournaments. But the idea, right, is there. It's just you join a 12-person league. Everybody does their best ball draft, and you're playing for. You do best ball for the NFL version, right? You do best ball scoring through the first 14 leagues in the construct of your 12-team league. And then the top 2 teams advance, and then new 12-team leagues or something akin to that is created with the people who advanced. Top 1 or 2 advance to new leagues, right? The pyramid is shrinking. And then the final, like week 17, is like there's 50 teams remaining, and everyone there is playing for like big prizes. It's awesome. So something like that for college football. I mean, could you even imagine like what that would be like? So first of all, it'd be interesting. Like I love the idea of like trying to understand the infrastructure around stuff like this. Like Fantrax catches a lot of shit in some cases, rightfully so. But I can't imagine like what it must be like to set up all the feeds, like working to have all those tables joining to each other and having this thing actually work properly and make it in a way that allows for customization at the league level. It feels like a lot. So,
how would you draft that? Do you have like early inclinations or thoughts about how you would draft your team, knowing that you have to be top 2?
So I know you probably didn't read the rules to Greg's league, but like there's an overall component to his. Are you familiar with that?
Of course not. I don't read league rules. What are you talking about?
So the Greg's Debbie Warehouse's Best Ball Championship Series, right? We're drafting our 12-team leagues. The whoever wins each of those leagues gets money, but then also all of our points from the 12. I admittedly read it wrong like the first 4 times, so I'm not really one to talk. I didn't really understand where it was actually going until midway through our second draft, but all the points from the 12 leagues, you sum them all up, right? And you sum up your scores across the 12 leagues, and at the end, top 3 teams get paid out for based on how many points you score across all your leagues. So that's a little different than what we're talking about, like a large scale best ball, in the sense that it's not just the same 12 people competing against each other, right? It's getting like a large scale best ball. Maybe you could do 150 drafts, right? But you're going to be competing against thousands of people. So different equation. But it would be so funny, I think, to just like, so do you follow NFL best ball Twitter at all? You probably do, just by like, no? Okay.
Maybe not. I don't think so.
So like you've got different people with different schools of thought, but a lot of it is so data driven, just like a lot of NFL fantasy, right? Of trying to base drafts off of projections, and then you've got game theory components for stuff like this as well. Giving consideration to ATP, giving consideration to when I want to just be contrarian to try and capture stacks, or I guess those things aren't really correlating. Like be contrarian relative to the field, capture stacks to try and maximize scoring, right? But trying to see, it'd be so interesting to see how those principles apply / do not apply in college football, right? Because a lot of them won't apply. Like, good luck trying to build projections and maintain them for CFB pre kickoff of week 1, right? And have that actually be something that you're going to apply in the same way as NFL, which I think a lot of people would just do, right? I mean, one of the main problems with something like this is trying to actually A, convince a site to run it, B, getting enough buy-in from thousands of people. I think you would see, just because I think you would see people try it. I don't know if it would get like how it would do year one, year two kind of deal. I think that some of the people that would be most successful, though, are the people that like to do information-based betting, right? Like your boy Amico, who likes to dig up draft props, which is a game that I am sucking too much of my time into this year. Like I'm obsessed at this point. But people like that who want to make decisions based off of information games, I think would do really well in something like this, right? But I think that I don't know. Like one of the things I love about season-long CFB and just CFB in general is how hard it is to quantify a lot of the variables. So, so many people like to play NFL fantasy, NFL DFS, NFL basketball based off of a data-driven game. I don't know if it would be interesting to see how those same people, how that translates to something like college football, large-scale basketball.
I think what's really interesting about CFF compared to NFL is that like there's such a huge difference in like your top performers and what's the average, like in things that you think would not be possible. Like Jared at one point was talking about best quarterback running back stacks. Like, could you imagine an NFL person being like, this is a great quarterback running back stack? Like their mind would blow up, right? But like it almost kind of made sense. Like Adrian Martinez and Deuce Vaughn, like imagine the upside with those two, right? Like I think it's just such an interesting concept because there are so many crazy differences between the two. You know, you got Jarrett Patterson out here scoring like 80 fantasy points. Like it's hard to like, you know, I listen to Amico, who's great, Anthony Amico, if you're not a fan of him, but you don't know him, but he's so good on data, and he's like, you know, you got to like stack this and do this and do that. And I just think that with CFF, there are ways to get to that point where it's like you have to do this, you have to do this, but there's so much outlier that it just blows up everything that you have no idea. Like it could just
our
ruin
information is so poor, right? Our information, it's so peaceful, it's so piecemeal, it's so poor. It's constantly changing. Now, information is not. It's not just like it's dispersed like out there, and like you have to go out and actively seek it. It's push versus pull, right? And you have to go and pull out a lot of that information. So the idea that everyone has access or has attained the same information to populate their projections, which is generally the case with NFL, right? It's just not the case with CFB.
Yeah, I mean, I think NFL is tough too because, not tough. It's more just kind of set. You know who the great players are, whereas in college, great players can pop up any week for any given team. Like Devontae Adams is going to get his looks. Like you just know that. Whereas in college, like a guy that's not played much at all steps in and now he's getting 10, 12 targets. Like a guy you've maybe never even heard of, or you're like, yeah, I know he's there, but he hasn't gotten any run. Why would I think he's getting run this week? And it kind of leans back to Andrew's point. The information isn't there to be able to know that. Whereas in NFL, they might say, oh, he's practicing with the ones today. You know, like in college.
I'm totally down with it. I get it. I agree with it in terms of like the fact that there's just not enough data and information out there for college football. But I think it's so like the sport is so crazy that even if you have the sport or have the data, it's not going to necessarily like put you on that straight and narrow towards winning. And like I think there's just so many crazy variances within it, which is I think, by the way, why we love fantasy college football. Like I think this kind of goes with like the last pod is that like the fact that anything can. I picked up Jack Sorensen in like week 3 on the waiver wire in the league last year, and it was amazing. And the guy was just incredible. And I felt like just a Superman, and words I can't even say on this before going explicit. So like I think it's that type of stuff that makes the sport so fun to do fantasy. But it's just really interesting. I don't think there's a guarantee, even if we had the data,
Yeah, there's
that
so
it would
many
prove.
variables, so much variance because in the NFL there's 32 teams, whereas in college you have 100. What is it now? 130.
32 or something like that.
Like there's guys that I might like that nobody else would even consider, and vice versa. Like
Yeah.
you might have your guy that plays for App State or for Troy or whoever, and you're on this guy real heavy, and you take that chance, you grab this guy in your best ball, and he pops and he's a star. You're
Yeah.
going to look really good come end of the season because you've got that guy, and not very many people do. But in NFL, everybody's considered.
Yeah,
Yeah,
everybody
definitely.
knows the 2 or 3 deep, right? Like
Yeah,
like Ellis Merriweather until like halfway, maybe 2/3 of last season. Through that season, I had no idea who that guy was. He was producing. He was doing a great job. He was awesome. And then it still took me weeks to know who he was. And like I follow college fantasy football a good bit. But that's just the sport. It's amazing. It's almost like there's so much information you don't have enough time. And
Right.
the problem with that is that like there's also like if you're like, you know what, like, well, I do this professionally. There's not enough money out there to do this professionally. You know, NFL, NBA, and MLB, you can literally quit your day job and just do that specifically. If you do it well, you can make more than your day job.
So
You
Chris,
can't.
why have
You can base. Well, for one, I just make way too much money at my day job.
fair enough.
But two,
Fair enough.
it's just the prize pools are not there, right? I think Andrew and I were talking about
Dude,
this.
it's so annoying.
Like you're when you're playing daily fantasy, well, real quickly because we're at the hour mark. When you're playing daily fantasy football, the prize pools are so top heavy that like very, very, very much 1% winnings, like that top end. Like there's a huge difference between getting first place and fifth place, and you're talking about like a 5 or 10 or 15,000 person entry pool. Like it's crazy. Like you join at $15 and fifth place is like $500. You're like, that's nice, but you know, first place is $50K and I just won $500 for getting fifth. Like that's insane. But that's just where it's at. And then I think that's just another level of the difference between CFB, NFL. But I don't mind it. We love it. We pod to 54 people, 9 subscribers or whatever it is, because we just love it. It's just a fun sport.
Right. I think we're going to cut it there, though. We could go on, like Andrew said, 2 more hours on this topic. But we're going to cut it there. And unless you guys have something else to add real quick. No? All right.
Good.
All right. Well, we'll be back next week. Don't know what time, but we'll be back next week. Until then, later, guys.
See you guys.